There's something haunting about the unknown, the way a single, unsolved mystery can linger for centuries, tugging at the edges of our curiosity. Tonight, we're stepping into one of history's most enduring puzzles, a book so enigmatic that even the brightest minds have stumbled over its secrets. The Voynich Manuscript. Its pages are filled with strange, looping script and illustrations of plants that don't seem to exist, and to this day, no one has ever cracked its code. But what if I told you there's a story behind the manuscript, one that begins with a whisper, a touch, and a linguist who dared to listen? Picture this, Doctor. Elara Voss, a scholar with a lifetime spent unraveling dead languages, receives an invitation to a secluded archive. The letter is brief, almost cryptic, but it mentions the one artifact that has eluded her for years, the Voynich Manuscript. When she finally holds it, the pages feel alive under her fingertips, as if the ink itself hums with a language lost to time. She isn't just reading the manuscript anymore, she's hearing it. And that's where our journey begins, because decoding this book isn't just about solving a riddle, it's about uncovering a truth that could rewrite history, or perhaps awaken something far older and far more unsettling. Before we go any deeper, I'd love to know, where are you joining us from tonight? Are you curled up in bed, the glow of your screen, the only light in the room? Or maybe you're listening on a quiet evening walk, the stars overhead as mysterious as the manuscript itself. Let us know in the comments below. Tell us where you are and what time it is for you. There's something special about knowing we're all exploring this mystery together, no matter how many miles apart. Now, let's step into the archive with Dr. Voss. The air is thick with the scent of aged parchment and candle wax, and the manuscript sits before her, its spine cracked with centuries of handling. The first thing she notices isn't the strange symbols or the unfamiliar plants. It's the feeling that the book is watching her back. Every turn of the page sends a shiver down her spine, as if the words are resisting her, hiding their meaning just out of reach. But she's determined, because if the Voynich Manuscript has waited this long to share its secrets, maybe it's been waiting for her, and maybe, just maybe, tonight is the night it finally speaks. The hum of the recording equipment fills the quiet archive as Dr. Voss adjusts the delicate sensors along the manuscript's spine. The parchment thrums beneath her fingertips, not just paper and ink, but something deeper, a resonance that defies explanation. She leans closer, her headphones amplifying the subtle vibrations into something resembling speech. At first, it's just murmurs, scattered syllables that slip through the static like fragments of a dream. Then, one word emerges with startling clarity, a sound like Vithra, spoken in a voice that isn't hers. The air grows heavy, charged with the scent of ozone, as if the room itself is holding its breath. Then darkness. The lights flicker once, twice, and vanish, leaving only the dim glow of her equipment stand. By lights, the whispers don't stop. They sharpen, coiling around her in the blackness, syllables stitching themselves into phrases that crawl up her arms like cold fingers. Naked Verosa, the manuscript breathes, the words trembling through her headphones. Karadulan, the warnings come faster now, layered over one another in a chorus of urgency. Something shifts in the shadows, a draft where there shouldn't be, the faint creak of a shelf bearing weight it didn't hold before. Her pulse hammers in her throat, but her hands stay steady. Because beneath the fear, there's something else, the electric thrill of a secret about to break. The manuscript isn't just speaking to her, it's speaking for something. And whatever's in this room with her, it's listening too. Dr. Voss doesn't flinch when the lights return, her fingers still pressed to the manuscript's pages, as if they might dissolve beneath her touch. The whispers linger in her ears, a ghostly echo of words that refuse to be forgotten. She knows she can't unravel this alone. That's when she calls Dr. Kiran Hale, a cryptographer whose reputation for dismantling hoaxes is as sharp as his tongue. When he arrives, his expression is a mask of polite doubt right up until she plays the recording. Auditory pareidolia, he declares, arms crossed. Your brain stitching meaning into random noise happens all the time, but Alara doesn't argue. She simply turns the manuscript toward him, to a page she's marked with a ribbon. Then explain this. The illustration is familiar, a twisting vine with star-shaped flowers, one of dozens like it in the book. Except now, the petals curl inward, as if wilting, and between them, tiny symbols pulse like veins. Kiran scoffs, leaning in. Trick of the light, or you're seeing what you want to. His voice dies as the ink shivers, the symbols rearranging themselves into a sequence that mirrors the whispers still looping in Alara's headphones. His hand jerks back like he's been burned. For the first time, the man who's spent his career debunking the impossible has no explanation. The room feels smaller now, the air charged with something neither of them can name. Kiran paces, running a hand through his hair. There's got to be a scientific rationale. Fading ink reacting to humidity, maybe, or Alara cuts him off, tapping a line of text beneath the shifting illustration. It's responding to us, to our presence. She traces the symbols with a fingertip, and as if on cue, they darken, spreading across the page like roots, seeking water. Kiran's breath catches. He's built his life on logic, on systems that can be broken down and understood. But this defies every rule. Then the manuscript does something new. The vines in the illustration twitch, unfurling toward the edge of the page, as if reaching for Kiran's sleeve. He stumbles back, knocking over a chair. That's not possible. Alara's voice is steady, but her hands tremble. It isn't supposed to be. For a long moment, they just stare at each other, the weight of what they've witnessed settling between them. Kiran's skepticism hasn't vanished, but it's fractured, and through the cracks, something else is creeping in. Curiosity, dread, the unshakable sense that whatever language this book is written in, it wasn't meant for human eyes. Alara turns the page. The next illustration is darker, denser, a figure shrouded in what might be robes or wings, its face a void, and beneath it, the script coils like smoke, forming words that weren't there before. Kiran exhales sharply. We need to document this. Every change, every symbol. His voice is tight, but his eyes are alight with the same feverish focus Alara recognizes in herself. The thrill of the hunt, the terror of what they might find, because now they're not just studying the manuscript, they're in conversation with it, and it has so much more to say. The symbol glows faintly beneath Alara's fingertips, a series of interlocking circles etched into the margin of the page, like a constellation frozen in ink. She's seen it before, not in any textbook, but in the fragments of a half-remembered myth whispered among linguistic scholars. The Vithari, she murmurs, tracing the curves. A civilization that mapped their entire language in the stars. They believed words weren't just spoken. They were woven into the sky. Kiran frowns, flipping through his notebook. You're saying this manuscript isn't just encoded. It's what? An astral dictionary. The air between them crackles with possibility. Alara pulls a weathered anthropology journal from the shelf. Its pages brittle with age. Inside, a faded sketch shows a stone tablet covered in similar symbols, unearthed decades ago in a dig near the Black Sea. The caption is blunt, untranslatable, possibly ritualistic, but the date makes her breath catch. The same year, a fire mysteriously destroyed the research outpost where the tablet was stored. Too convenient. Kiran notices her hesitation. Let me guess. Another dead end. She nods, thumbing through the journal's remaining pages. Every reference to the Vithari has been meticulously excised, leaving only jagged edges and the ghost of missing ink. Across the room, the scrape of a chair draws their attention. Ms. Darrow, the archive's silver-haired curator, lingers near the door, her usual crisp demeanor softened by something unreadable. She's been bringing them tea every hour like clockwork, but her eyes keep drifting to the manuscript with a familiarity that doesn't match her claim of casual interest. Now she steps forward, adjusting her glasses. You two look like you've seen a ghost. Her voice is light, but her fingers tighten around the tray she carries. Kiran shuts the journal with a snap, just hitting some bureaucratic walls. Seems like every time we find a lead, the records vanish. A mess. Darrow's smile doesn't reach her eyes. How unfortunate. She sets down the tray, her sleeve brushing the manuscript, and for a heartbeat, the symbols flare brighter, as if reacting to her touch. Alara freezes. The curator doesn't seem to notice, already turning toward the door. Let me know if you need anything else, she says, too sweetly. Some doors stay locked for a reason. The words hang in the air long after she's gone, heavy with warning. Kiran exhales through his teeth. Okay, that wasn't subtle. He reaches for his laptop, pulling up a database of declassified government files. If someone's scrubbing history, they're not perfect. There's always a trail. The screen flickers as he types, revealing a series of documents stamped redacted in thick black ink. One catches Alara's eye, a memo from 1953. Its subject line barely visible, Vithari Recovery Op. The body of the text is blacked out, but the signature at the bottom isn't. The name makes her blood run cold, because it's not just any bureaucrat's scrawl. It's a surname she knows, Darrow. The hum of the recording fills the quiet archive as Alara adjusts the playback speed, her fingers hovering over the controls. It's past midnight, and the only light comes from the dim glow of her laptop screen, casting long shadows across the manuscript's weathered pages. She's listened to the whispers 100 times, but tonight, she tries something different, reversing the audio. At first, it's just garbled noise, a chaotic jumble of syllables. Then, something shifts. The distorted whispers twist into a slow, haunting melody, notes sliding together like water over stone. The air grows thick, heavy with the scent of damp earth and old incense. Her vision blurs. For a heartbeat, she's no longer in the archive. She stands in the ruins of a towering temple, its pillars carved with the same looping symbols as the manuscript. The sky above churns with storm clouds, and from the shadows between the crumbling stones, a chorus of voices rises, singing the same melody, now pulsing through her headphones. The ground trembles, a fissure splits the temple floor, and from the darkness below, something reaches for her. Alara jerks upright with a gasp, her chair clattering to the floor. The vision vanishes as suddenly as it came, leaving her gripping the edge of the table, her heart pounding. The recording still plays, the reversed whispers now silent. But something else is wrong. Her breath catches as she turns back to the manuscript. Near the center, a page hangs by a single thread, its edge jagged where it's been torn cleanly in half. She swears it was intact minutes ago. Her fingers brush the torn edge, and a static shock jolts up her arm, sharp enough to make her yank back. Footsteps echo in the hallway. Kiran appears in the doorway, his hair mussed from sleep, his glasses perched crookedly on his nose. "You're still here." His voice is rough with exhaustion, but his gaze sharpens when he sees her face. What happened? Alara doesn't answer at first. She stares at the torn page, at the symbols now bleeding faintly at the edges, as if the ink is alive. When she finally speaks, her voice is steady, but her hands betray her, trembling slightly against the table. "I think it's trying to show us something. And whatever's on this missing piece, it doesn't want us to see it." Kiran steps closer, his usual skepticism muted by the intensity in her eyes. He picks up the torn fragment from the floor, a corner of the page she didn't even realize had fallen. The symbols on it are darker than the rest, clustered together like a warning. "You're sure this wasn't torn before?" Alara meets his gaze. "I've handled every page of this book for weeks." "I would have noticed." A silence stretches between them, broken only by the faint creak of the old building settling. Kiran exhales, running a hand through his hair. "Okay, then we're not just dealing with a cipher. We're dealing with something that reacts." He doesn't say the word alive, but it hangs in the air between them all the same. Alara turns back to the manuscript, her jaw set. The fear is still there, coiled tight in her chest, but beneath it burns something fiercer determination. "We need to find out where that temple was. If it's real, it could be the key to translating the rest." Kiran nods slowly, but his eyes keep darting to the torn page, to the way the symbols seem to shift under the light. Neither of them mentions the other possibility, that whatever tore the page didn't do it to hide the truth, but to protect them from it. A mess. Darrow stands in the doorway of the archive, her silhouette sharp against the flickering hallway lights. The usual warmth in her voice is gone, replaced by something colder, clipped. "This research ends tonight." She steps forward, her polished heels clicking against the stone floor, like a metronome counting down to something final. Kiran bristles, his chair scraping back. On whose authority? The Curator doesn't blink. The boards, "Your methods lack academic rigor," chasing whispers, seeing patterns in ink blots. "It's irresponsible." Her gaze flicks to the manuscript, still open on the table, its pages faintly luminous under the lamplight. Alara watches the way a mess. Darrow's fingers twitch, as if resisting the urge to snatch it away. There's a beat of silence. Then Alara leans in, her voice low but steady. "You've handled this book before." It isn't a question. The curator's mask slips for just a second, a flicker of something like fear in her eyes before she smooths her expression. Of course. It's my job, but the lie is too quick, too practiced. Alara exchanges a glance with Kiran. They've both spent years reading people, and a mess Darrow is hiding something. Midnight finds them crouched outside the curator's office, the lock yielding to Kiran's tools with a soft click. The room smells of lavender and old paper, meticulously organized, except for one drawer, its contents hastily shoved in, a corner of parchment peeking out like a tongue of flame. Elara pulls it free, her pulse quickening. The notes are written in a tight, angular script, detailing a society called the Vigil of the Veil, sworn to guard the gate and silence the song. Dates span centuries, each entry marking a disappearance, a fire, a researcher gone mad, and at the bottom of the stack, a map, its edges singed, pointing to a site marked only by a single symbol, the same interlocking circles from the manuscript. Kiran sucks in a breath. They're not just hiding the manuscript's secrets, they're containing them. A floorboard creaks in the hallway. They freeze. The sound isn't from the old building settling, it's footsteps, deliberate and slow. Someone's coming. Alara shoves the papers back, but it's too late. The door swings open, revealing not a mess Darrow, but a figure in a dark coat, their face obscured by shadows. "You shouldn't be here," a man's voice rasps. He steps into the light, and the emblem on his lapel glints a circle, bisected by a key. The vigil isn't history. It's here, and they've been watching all along. The observatory looms against the moonlit sky, its dome cracked like an eggshell, the brass telescope inside crusted with age. Alara's flashlight beam trembles over Darrow's notes, coordinates scrawled in the margin beside a single phrase, "When the sky remembers." The air smells of rust and damp stone as they step inside, their footsteps echoing through the hollow dark. Kiran's breath fogs the glass of the telescope's eyepiece as he peers through. It's not aligned right. It's pointing at his voice catches. That's not a star, it's a date. Next month. Alara's skin prickles. The manuscript's symbols pulse in her mind, that same looping script, now etched into the observatory's star charts pinned to the walls. She traces a finger over one, and the paper crackles with static. It's not just a map, it's a timeline. The realization hits her like a weight. The Vithari didn't write their language in the stars. They wrote the stars themselves. Kiran grips the telescope's adjustment wheel. "Let's see what happens when we point it where it's supposed to go." The metal groans as he turns it, gears grinding like something waking from a long sleep. The moment the scope clicks into place, the floor shudders. Dust rains from the ceiling as the observatory walls begin to glow, lines of light spider webbing through the plaster like veins. Symbols ignite in the dark, not just on the charts, but on the walls themselves, burning gold as if the building is remembering its purpose. A low hum fills the air, vibrating through their bones. The light coalesces into a single phrase above the telescope, words written in a language neither of them has studied, but both can suddenly read. The gate opens when the song ends. Kiran's hand hovers near the glowing inscription. This isn't a warning. His voice is barely a whisper. It's a countdown. Outside, the wind rises, howling through the broken dome. The stars overhead seem brighter now, their positions shifting almost imperceptibly, aligning into patterns that mirror the manuscript's pages. Alara's pulse races. They've found the key, but the door it unlocks isn't made of wood or stone. It's written in the sky itself, and it's opening sooner than anyone expected. Alara's hands shake as she traces the newly revealed inscription in the observatory's fading light, her fingertips brushing symbols that pulse like a slow, steady heartbeat. It's not just a countdown, she whispers. It's coordinates, a celestial alignment that hasn't happened in over 3,000 years. Kiran leans in, his breath warm against her shoulder as he checks his tablet. The numbers match too perfectly. The manuscript's looping script mirrors the exact position of a distant nebula, one that will intersect with Earth's orbit in less than 30 days. His voice drops to a hushed urgency. This isn't a history book, it's a trigger. The realization hangs between them, electric and terrifying. They rush back to the archive under a sky that suddenly feels too vast, too watchful. But the moment they push through the heavy oak doors, the silence tells them something's wrong. Their workstations are overturned, notes shredded like confetti. The manuscript's display case stands empty, its glass shattered from the inside out. Kiran kicks a crumpled page, a star chart they'd painstakingly reconstructed, now marred by a single charcoal smear where the nebula should be. Someone didn't just steal our research, he mutters. They erased it. Then Alara sees it, a slip of paper tucked beneath her overturned chair, the edges crisp as if cut with a blade. The message is brief, the ink still damp. Some doors shouldn't be opened. The handwriting is unmistakable. MS Darrow's, but it's the symbol beneath the words that chills them. A circle split by a key, identical to the Vigil's emblem, only this time the key is broken. Kiran pockets the note, his jaw tight. She wasn't trying to stop us. She was warning us. The archive's shadows seemed to deepen around them, the air thick with the scent of burnt paper and something darker, metallic. Elara reaches for the last remaining clue, a fragment of the star chart, still pinned to the wall. As she lifts it, the paper disintegrates in her hands, dissolving into fine ash that swirls toward the ceiling like reverse snow. Above them, the overhead lights flicker once, twice, then fail completely. In the darkness, a new sound emerges, a whisper, not from the manuscript this time, but from the walls themselves. It's the same phrase from the observatory, repeated in a dozen overlapping voices. The gate opens when the song ends. Only now, the words are warped, stretched thin, as if strained through time. Kiran grabs Alara's arm, his grip urgent. We're not just deciphering a code anymore, he says. We're part of it. Outside, the wind rises, carrying with it the dissonant chime of bells, or something very like them, ringing from a place where no bells should be. The monastery's stone walls rise from the cliffs like ancient teeth, silhouetted against a sky where the stars burn too bright, too close. Alara's boots slip on the rain-slicked steps as she and Kiran race upward, their breath ragged. The air hums with an energy that makes her fillings ache, a vibration just beneath hearing, like the world itself is tuning to some unfathomable frequency. Through the arched windows above, a pulsing glow stains the glass the color of old blood. They burst into the sanctum just as the first beam of light pierces the domed ceiling, illuminating Darrow where she kneels at the center of a mosaic floor. The manuscript lies open before her, its pages radiating that same eerie luminescence. Around her, symbols carved into the stone blaze to life one by one, mirroring the constellations now aligning overhead. "Stay back," Darrow's voice cracks with something beyond fear, a raw, desperate reverence. "You don't understand what you're tampering with." Kiran lunges forward, but the light thickens like syrup, slowing his movements as if time itself is clotting around them. Alara staggers under the weight of it, her vision doubling. For a heartbeat, she sees not the monastery, but that same ruined temple from her vision. Its shattered columns now whole, its floors thrumming with the footsteps of robed figures chanting in a language that prickles her skin. The manuscript's pages begin to turn on their own, faster and faster, until they're a blur of light and shadow. Darrow reaches for the book with shaking hands. "It's not a text to be read," she gasps. "It's a lock to be opened." The moment her fingers touch the parchment, the light fractures into tendrils that snake up her arms, burrowing beneath her skin like living veins. She convulses, her eyes rolling back, but when they reopen, the irises are gone, replaced by swirling galaxies. Her voice comes layered now, echoing with countless others. The gate must feed. Kiran grabs Alara's wrist, his fingers icy. The Vigil wasn't hiding the manuscript to protect us from it. He breathes. They were protecting it from us. Above them, the dome splits with a sound like tearing silk, revealing not the night sky, but an abyss where something vast and shapeless stirs, drawn by the light like a moth to flame. The last symbol on the floor ignites a perfect circle, split by a key. Only now, the key is turning. The air crackles with tension as Alara and Kiran face each other across the glowing manuscript, their shadows stretching long against the monastery walls. "We can't destroy this." Alara's voice shakes, not with fear, but with the ferocity of someone who's spent a lifetime chasing truth. "This is the key to understanding everything. The Vithari, the gate, why the Vigil has been lying for centuries." Kiran's eyes dart to Darrow's trembling form, still kneeling in the center of the mosaic, her body a conduit for something far older than any of them. "Understanding won't matter if we're all erased," he snaps. "Look at her, Elara. That's not a woman anymore, it's a doorway." The manuscript's pages shudder, then lift from the ground one by one, suspended in the charged air like leaves caught in an updraft. The whispers that once curled at the edges of hearing now roar, a cacophony of voices speaking in tongues that twist the stomach, syllables that feel like hooks sinking into skin. The temperature plummets, frost spiders across the stone floor, branching toward their feet with unnatural speed. Alara doesn't hesitate. She lunges for the manuscript, her fingers closing around its spine just as the light erupts, a searing burst that whites out the world. For a heartbeat, everything is silent, weightless. Then the sound returns in a wave, and with it comes a sensation like falling through layers of time itself. The monastery walls dissolve into swirling fragments of color and shadow, the stars overhead stretching into streaks of liquid light. Somewhere in the chaos, Kiran shouts her name, but his voice is swallowed by the thunderous rush of wings, or something that sounds like wings, if wings could be made of shifting dimensions. When the light fades, Elara finds herself kneeling not on cold stone, but on soft earth. The air smells of salt and damp moss. Above her, the sky is wrong, not the familiar scatter of constellations, but a spiraling tapestry of symbols she's only ever seen inked on parchment. The manuscript lies open in her hands, Its pages now eerily still. The last thing she hears before the silence settles is Darrow's voice, or what's left of it, whispering a single phrase that curls like smoke in her mind. You opened it. Now walk through. The first thing Alara notices isn't the impossible scale of the library, the way its shelves spiral upward into a darkness that might be a ceiling, or might be the void itself, but the silence. The whispers that have haunted her for weeks are gone. In their place, a single voice, clear as struck glass, speaks from everywhere and nowhere at once. You've crossed the threshold, it says, not unkindly. Few do. The air smells of ozone and old parchment, each breath carrying the sharp tang of lightning-struck stone. She reaches for the nearest shelf, her fingers brushing the spine of a book, bound in what feels like living bark. The moment she touches it, the library shifts, shelves rearranging themselves with a sound like rustling feathers. A pathway opens before her, leading to a reading table where the Voynich Manuscript lies open, its pages now glowing with a soft, silver light. But it's different here, larger, its margins filled with annotations in a dozen hands, some fresh, others faded by centuries. The spectral figure materializes so gradually, she almost misses it, a silhouette at first, then features resolving like ink spreading in water. Its face is neither young nor old, its eyes twin pools of shifting script. You seek understanding, it says, and the words vibrate in her bones. The manuscript is but one page in the library of the between. Stay, and every mystery will unravel before you. It gestures, and the shelves ripple, revealing glimpses of other worlds, cities of floating stone, oceans where the tides move in fractal patterns, a sky written in languages that twist as she tries to read them. Her throat tightens. This is what she's wanted, craved, since she first deciphered her father's notes as a child, the thrill of peeling back layers of the unknown. But the figure isn't finished. To walk these stacks is to forget the path that brought you, it murmurs. No anchor survives the between, not even memory. A cold knot forms in her stomach. She thinks of Kiran's laugh, the way he rolls his eyes when she's being stubborn, the smell of her grandmother's kitchen, steam curling from cups of too strong tea. The weight of her own name, earned through years of dogged pursuit. What is knowledge without the self to hold it? The figure extends a hand, its fingers translucent, the lines of its palm shifting like constellations. Choose. Around her, the library breathes, shelves expanding and contracting as if waiting. The manuscript's pages flutter, revealing an illustration she's never seen. A figure standing at a crossroads, one path leading into light, the other into a mirror that reflects nothing at all. Kiran's voice slices through the silence like a lifeline, rough, urgent, fraying at the edges. Alara, the sound of her name, tugs at something deep in her chest, a thread tied to a world she can barely remember. The spectral figure doesn't fade so much as unravel, its form dissolving into streams of ink that swirl upward before vanishing into the library's impossible heights. Around her, the shelves tremble, books tumbling from their perches like startled birds. The air itself seems to fold inward, the walls bending as if the entire structure is exhaling. She clutches the manuscript to her chest, its pages humming against her ribs like a second heartbeat. Then the ground gives way, not falling, but being pulled, as if reality has hooked its fingers into her shoulders and yanked. Colors smear, sound distorts. For a breathless moment, She's everywhere and nowhere, weightless and heavy all at once. Then her knees hit solid stone. Cold air rushes into her lungs, sharp with the scent of extinguished candles and damp wool. Blinking against the sudden glare of electric light, she registers two faces hovering above her. Kiran, his glasses askew, his usually composed expression shattered into raw relief, and Darrow, paler than parchment, her lips moving soundlessly. The manuscript slips from Alara's grasp, landing on the floor with a thud that echoes too loudly in the sudden quiet. Kiran scoops it up, his hands unsteady, flipping through the pages with increasing urgency. "It's blank," he whispers. "Not just the text, the illustrations, the margins, even the stains that once hinted at centuries of handling, all gone. The parchment is pristine, as if nothing was ever written there at all." Darrow sinks to her knees, her fingers brushing the empty pages with something like reverence. "You brought it back," she murmurs, "but you left the door open." Outside the monastery's broken windows, the sky pulses once, a ripple passing through the stars like a stone dropped into dark water. The light catches the edges of Darrow's pupils, and for the briefest instant, they aren't human at all, just endless black, swallowing the reflection whole. The morning light slants across Alara's desk, pooling in the grooves of the manuscript's now blank pages. She's about to close it when a flicker catches her eye, a hairline crack in the parchment, so fine it might be a trick of the light. But as she leans closer, the crack darkens, spreading like ink and water, forming the faintest outline of a symbol she's never seen before. Her breath catches. "Kiran," she calls, her voice steadier than she feels. It's coming back. By the time he rushes in, the symbol has multiplied. Not just one, but a dozen delicate marks now spidering across the page, as if the manuscript is stitching itself back together from some invisible blueprint. Darrow arrives moments later, her usual composure fraying at the edges as she takes in the sight. "Impossible," she murmurs, but her hand drifts to the locket at her throat, fingers tightening around it like a talisman. The Vigil burned every copy, every translation. They made sure nothing could survive. Kiran traces a fresh line of script with his fingertip, his brow furrowed. "Unless it wasn't the manuscript that needed protecting," he says slowly. "Maybe it was us." The words hang in the air, heavy with implication. Darrow exhales sharply, her shoulders slumping as if some long-held tension has finally snapped. "My great-grandmother was the last keeper before me," she admits, her voice barely above a whisper. "She told me stories not of destroying the book, but of waiting for the right hands to hold it." Her gaze lifts to Alara's, and there's something terrifying in its certainty. Hands that wouldn't fear the power, hands that could steer it. Alara's pulse thrums in her wrists. The new markings glow faintly under her touch, responding to her warmth, as if recognizing her. For the first time since the monastery, the whispers don't feel like a warning. They feel like an invitation. "You're saying the Vigil wasn't just hiding the truth," she says. "They were preserving it for someone like me." Darrow nods, her locket clicking open to reveal a miniature portrait, not of a person, but of the same interlocking circles from the manuscript. "We were never the lock," she says. "We were the key." Outside, the wind shifts, carrying with it the distant, dissonant chime of bells, or perhaps just the echo of a door swinging open at last. The monastery's old wooden table groans under the weight of maps, notebooks, and half-empty coffee, cups as Alara leans forward, her fingers tracing the manuscript's newly restored symbols. "We can't keep this hidden," she says, her voice firm but quiet, like someone who's spent years learning how to make truth sound like an offering rather than a threat. But we can't let it fall into the wrong hands either. Across from her, Kiran adjusts his glasses, the blue light of his laptop reflecting in the lenses as he pulls up a 3D scan of the manuscript's latest transformation. If we digitize every change, every shift in the text, we create a living record. No single government, no rogue scholar, no secret society could monopolize it. Darrow watches them from the doorway, her arms crossed, but there's no resistance in her stance now, only the weary resolve of someone who's spent a lifetime guarding a relic, only to realize it was never meant to be locked away. The Vigil had protocols, she admits, stepping into the circle of lamplight, burn the copies, silence the witnesses, but the manuscript always came back. Maybe it wasn't resisting us, maybe it was waiting for this. She taps a faded entry in her own journal, a list of names, dates, locations stretching back centuries. Every generation, a few researchers got close. Their notes vanished, their labs burned, but the Vigil kept records too. Contacts, allies, people who might have been ready if we'd ever trusted them. Alara's eyes gleam as she reaches for the journal. We reach out to them, not as keepers of secrets, but as curators of a shared discovery. Linguists, astronomers, historians. We build a network where no one person holds all the pieces. Kiran nods, already typing furiously, his screen splitting into a grid of open databases. We can fragment the data, encrypt it, distribute it across servers, universities, private archives. Like a puzzle where the keys are held by people who will never meet. Outside, the wind rattles the monastery's ancient shutters, but inside, the air feels lighter, charged with something brighter than fear, possibility. The manuscript lies between them, its pages faintly glowing, as if approving. For the first time since this began, the whispers aren't warnings. They're a chorus, humming in harmony. The knock at Alara's door comes just after midnight, 3 sharp raps that send her pen skittering across the notebook where she's been transcribing the manuscript's newest symbols. She freezes, her breath catching. No one should know she's here. The apartment is a rental under a false name, paid for in cash. Kiran and Darrow exchange glances from across the cluttered table, their conversation dying mid-sentence. The knock comes again, louder this time, followed by the unmistakable click of a key turning in the lock. Kiran moves first, shoving the manuscript into a hidden compartment in Alara's bag, while Darrow reaches for the fireplace poker, her movements eerily calm. The door swings open to reveal not an intruder, but emptiness, just the dim glow of the hallway sconces and a slip of paper fluttering to the floor. Alara edges forward, her pulse hammering, and picks it up. The message is typed, the letters crisp and impersonal. The guardians are watching. A floorboard creaks overhead. All 3 of them look up at the ceiling, where the sound of footsteps, too deliberate, too heavy, echoes from the apartment above. Except Alara knows for a fact that unit's been vacant for months. Kiran grabs his laptop, pulling up the building's security feed with a few keystrokes. The screen flickers to life, showing the lobby, the stairwell, the roof access all empty. But in the corner of the rooftop camera, just for a fraction of a second, something moves. A shadow, tall and lean, its edges blurring like smoke. Then the feed cuts to static. Darrow doesn't flinch. She pulls a burner phone from her pocket, dialing a number from memory. "We've been made," she says when the line connects, her voice steady but her knuckles white around the phone. "Initiate protocol Vithra." The response is too muffled to hear, but whatever's said makes her jaw tighten. She hangs up and meets their eyes. The Vigil's inner circle is still active, and they don't just want the manuscript back. They want to erase anyone who's seen it revived. Alara's skin prickles. She crosses to the window, twitching the curtain aside just enough to peer into the alley below. A figure stands there, face upturned, features obscured by the brim of a hat. As if sensing her gaze, they lift a hand not in threat, but in acknowledgement before melting into the darkness. The streetlight above them flickers once, then goes out. Kiran exhales sharply, snapping his laptop shut. "We can't stay here." He's already packing their research into a waterproof case, his movements methodical. "But we can't run either, not if they're this close." Darrow nods, tucking the fireplace poker into her belt, like it's the most natural thing in the world. "Then we don't run," she says. "We bait them." The Vigil's weakness has always been its hunger for control, so we give them something to chase, while the real work happens elsewhere. Alara looks down at the note again, at the way the paper quivers slightly in her grip, as if charged with static. The manuscript's whispers rise in her mind, not in warning this time, but in agreement. They've spent weeks unraveling secrets. Now it's time to weave one of their own. The lecture hall hums with the low murmur of scholars and enthusiasts, the air thick with the scent of old books and polished wood. Alara stands at the podium, her fingers brushing the edge of her notes as she gestures to the projected image behind her, a blown-up section of the Voynich Manuscript, its looping script rendered larger than life. What makes this text so compelling isn't just its unbroken code, she says, her voice steady despite the way her pulse thrums in her throat, but the way it defies every known linguistic pattern of its time. The word structures aren't just unfamiliar, they are impossible. A ripple of interest passes through the crowd. In the front row, a gray-haired linguist leans forward, his pencil poised over a notebook. Near the back, a woman in a dark coat watches without blinking, her hands folded too neatly in her lap. Alara doesn't let her gaze linger. She's practiced this talk a dozen times, pruning every reference to the manuscript's more unsettling qualities. The way the ink sometimes moves, the whispers that coil in the air when no one else is around. Instead, she focuses on the dry, academic puzzle, the statistical anomalies in letter frequency, the recurring glyphs that might represent celestial events. It's a performance, and she's good at it. Kiran lingers near the fire exit, his posture casual, but his eyes scan the room with the precision of a sniper. He's the only one who notices the man in the third row, too well dressed for a university lecture, his cufflinks glinting under the lights as he turns a pen between his fingers. Not taking notes, just waiting. Then, as Alara wraps up her talk to scattered applause, Kiran spots it, a symbol carved into the armrest of the man's chair, so faint it could be mistaken for a scratch. The same interlocking circles from the manuscript, half hidden beneath his sleeve. The crowd begins to disperse, voices rising in excited debate, but the man doesn't move. He watches Elara pack her slides with the focus of a predator, counting her prey's steps. Kiran edges closer, his hand slipping into his pocket, where his phone is already recording. By the time he reaches the chair, the man is gone, vanished into the stream of attendees, but the symbol remains. Kiran runs his thumb over the grooves. The wood is smooth, the carving fresh, a message, not a coincidence. Alara joins him, her smile for the crowd fading as she follows his gaze. How many of them are here? She murmurs, her breath warm against his ear. Kiran doesn't answer. Across the room, the woman in the dark coat lingers near the exit, her fingers tracing the same symbol etched into the doorframe. This isn't surveillance anymore. It's a claiming. The Vigil isn't just watching. They're marking their territory, and they've made it clear Alara's lecture wasn't just for academics. It was an audition. The plan takes shape over cups of bitter coffee and a map spread across Alara's kitchen table, the edges weighted down by a candle stub and Kiran's abandoned phone. We let them think they've won, Darrow says, tracing a route from the university to the museum with her fingertip. A public donation ceremony, cameras flashing, all while the real manuscript slips out the back. Kiran leans in, adjusting his glasses as he points to a side street marked in red. We'll need a distraction, something big enough to pull every Vigil eye in the city. Alara's grip tightens around her mug. Leave that to me. 3 days later, the museum's marble steps are crowded with reporters, their microphones bristling like antennae as Alara stands behind a velvet rope, a carefully crafted replica of the manuscript displayed under glass. Her speech is polished, her smile effortless. Today, we entrust this mystery to the world, she declares, and the applause is thunderous. Across the street, Kiran watches from a cafe window, his earpiece crackling with updates from Darrow, who's already miles away in an unmarked van, the real manuscript secured in a lead-lined case. By nightfall, they're gathered in a safe house, the windows blacked out, the only light coming from a single lamp that casts long shadows over their faces. Darrow pours whiskey into mismatched glasses, her usual poise softened by relief. To the fools who chase ghosts, she toasts, clinking her glass against Kiran's. But the moment is shattered by the shrill ring of her phone. The caller ID makes her blood run cold. The museum's main line, the director's assistant, is nearly hysterical. He never came back from the gala, she gasps. His office is it's like a storm hit it, and there's something on his desk. Darrow puts the call on speaker, and they all hear it. The faint, rhythmic tapping in the background, like ink dripping onto parchment. Kiran's jaw tightens. They didn't fall for the decoy. They upgraded their target. Alara stares at the manuscript where it rests on the table, its pages eerily still. The replica was flawless, down to the last stain and crease, but the Vigil didn't want a copy. They wanted the man who dared to pretend he could protect it. Outside, the wind picks up, rattling the shutters like bones in a cup. Somewhere in the city, a museum director's chair sits empty, its leather seat marked by a single, damp symbol, the same circles from the manuscript, glistening as if freshly drawn. The air in the abandoned subway station reeks of rust and wet concrete, the flickering fluorescent lights casting jagged shadows across the peeling tile walls. Alara presses her back against a support beam, her breath shallow as the echoes of heavy footsteps bounce through the tunnels. Kiran crouches beside her, his fingers tightening around the iron pipe he'd snatched from a broken railing, while Darrow stands rigid a few feet away, her gaze locked on the manuscript clutched to her chest. Its pages rustle faintly, though there's no wind this deep underground. The Vigil's enforcers appear like specters at the far end of the platform, their long coats blending into the gloom. There are 5 of them, moving in unnerving sync, their faces obscured by the brims of their hats. One raises a hand, and the temperature plummets, the moisture in the air crystallizing into frost that creeps across the floor toward the trio. Alara's pulse hammers, but her voice is steady when she speaks. They're using the same patterns as the manuscript's script ritual gestures. Break the sequence, and we break their control. Kiran doesn't wait. He lunges forward, swinging the pipe at a rusted metal sign hanging from the ceiling. The clang reverberates through the station like a gong, disrupting the enforcer's rhythm. One stumbles, his outstretched hand faltering as the frost halts its advance. Darrow seizes the moment, flipping open the manuscript to a page marked with a jagged symbol. The ink writhes under her touch, responding to the tension in the air. Alara closes her eyes, letting the whispers she's spent weeks deciphering flood her mind. They are not just sounds now, they're shapes, currents she can twist. She exhales a single syllable, a word that isn't a word, but a knife slicing through the enforcer's chant. The effect is instant. The lead enforcer clutches his throat as if the air has turned to glass, his lips moving soundlessly. The others reel back, their cohesion shattered. The manuscript jerks in Darrow's hands, its spine arching like a living thing. A pulse of golden light erupts from its pages, washing over the platform in a wave that sends the enforcers staggering. Their coats flutter as if caught in a gale, and for a heartbeat, their true forms flicker beneath the fabric. Too many limbs, too many eyes before they dissolve into the shadows, retreating with a hiss like steam on hot iron. Silence settles over the station, broken only by the distant drip of water. The manuscript lies still again in Darrow's grip, its pages fused shut as if sealed by an unseen hand. Kiran lets out a shaky laugh, rolling the pipe between his palms. Guess it didn't like being borrowed, but Alara's attention isn't on the book. It's on the wall behind where the enforcers stood. The pulse of light has left something behind, a symbol burned into the concrete, still glowing faintly. The same interlocking circles from the manuscript, but now there's a new element, a single line cutting through them like a key turned in a lock. Darrow traces it with her fingertips, her voice barely audible. It wasn't sealing itself away, it was answering. Above them, the lights buzz and die, plunging the station into darkness. But the symbol on the wall remains, pulsing softly, a beacon in the black. The safe house is quiet now, the kind of quiet that settles after a storm has passed, but before the world dares to believe it's truly over. Alara sits by the window, her fingers absently tracing the edge of a notebook, filled with symbols that still pulse faintly in the dim light. The manuscript is hidden, not buried, not destroyed, but tucked away in a place where only the right hands will find it when the time comes. Outside, the first hints of dawn bleed into the sky, painting the rooftops in shades of violet and gold. It's a new day, but the weight of what they've uncovered lingers like the aftertaste of a dream you can't quite shake. Kiran stirs behind her, the creak of his chair cutting through the silence. "You're still thinking about the library," he says, not a question, but an observation. Alara doesn't deny it. How could she? The whispers haven't stopped, not really. They've just grown quieter, weaving through her thoughts when she least expects it, like fragments of a song she can't place. Sometimes, in the space between waking and sleep, she swears she can still smell the ozone and ink, scent of that impossible place, its shelves stretching into eternity. Darrow enters with 3 mugs of tea, steam curling toward the ceiling. There's a new ease in her movements, as if the weight of centuries of secrecy has finally slipped from her shoulders. She sets a mug in front of Alara, the ceramic warm against her palms. "We're not the first to guard the manuscript," Darrow murmurs, her voice softer than usual. "But we might be the first to do it without fear." It's true. The Vigil had spent generations cowering from what they didn't understand, burning knowledge they deemed too dangerous. But fear had only made the manuscript's call louder, its secrets more desperate to be heard. Alara looks down at her tea, watching the leaves settle at the bottom. "We don't lock the door this time," she says finally. "We leave it ajar for the next ones who are ready." Kiran grins, raising his mug in a toast. "To the curious, then. May they be braver than we were." The clink of porcelain seems to hang in the air, a punctuation mark to something they can't quite name. Outside, the sun rises higher, its light spilling across the table, where a single page from the manuscript lies exposed, not hidden, not feared, but waiting. The ink shimmers faintly, as if in agreement. The story isn't over, it's just beginning.
you.